Well, the things that I experienced with him were monster-like. That stuff almost destroyed my life.
You know, there's a short life in
Why do you think that is with the creative side?
Well, because losing out money, you got to take you're going through so much to try and deal with life.
The courtroom was electric, a pressure cooker of shock, disbelief, and the promise of revelations that could shake the very foundations of Hollywood. No one could have anticipated what would happen next. Not the reporters crammed into the press box, not the jury who had already heard weeks of disturbing testimony, and certainly not the public following the case with bated breath. But on day 10 of Sean Diddy Combs' trial, a case already described as one of the most explosive in entertainment history, the atmosphere shifted irreversibly with a single name: Tom Hanks. When the judge called him to the stand, the room froze, as though time itself had stopped. America's dad, the man synonymous with integrity, humility, and unwavering decency, was stepping into a role no one could have imagined, a key witness in a case that unveiled the darkest corners of celebrity culture.
He cornered me. And then he asked me, with his arm up, he asked me, "How you doing?" I'm kind of like, wow, what the heck? Very uncomfortable. And then he rubbed his hand down my breast. He said, "If you need anything at all, you let me know."
The tension was palpable as Hanks made his way to the stand, his demeanor heavy, almost haunted. Gone was the warm, affable presence the world had come to adore in films like Forrest Gump or Saving Private Ryan. In his place stood a man burdened by secrets, by years of silence, and by the inescapable realization that his own complicity, his failure to speak sooner, had allowed those secrets to fester. What he revealed in the hours that followed was not merely a testimony, it was a reckoning. Hanks didn't just describe interactions with Diddy, he unveiled a hidden world, a bizarre, ritualistic dynamic that blurred the lines between power and paranoia, vulnerability and manipulation, friendship and control.
Card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying.
Hanks began by recounting his unexpected connection with Diddy, a relationship that reportedly began over a decade ago during an exclusive Met Gala after-party. According to Hanks, the two men bonded over discussions about legacy and fame, with Diddy presenting himself as introspective and philosophical, a man burdened by the weight of his own success. But as Hanks peeled back the layers of their interactions, it became clear that this was no ordinary friendship. Their relationship, he testified, was cloaked in secrecy, with private phone calls and meetings held in locations devoid of cameras or prying eyes. What started as seemingly innocent conversations about fame and mortality spiraled into something far more disturbing, a series of encounters that Hanks himself struggled to define. The most shocking detail? The baths. Hanks described how Diddy insisted on hosting these private, ritual-like moments in lavish, spa-like settings, from estates in Beverly Hills to villas in Turks and Caicos. These weren't casual or spontaneous, they were meticulously orchestrated. The rooms were always dimly lit, filled with candles and soft music, creating an atmosphere that felt both serene and deeply unsettling. Hanks testified that Diddy referred to these baths as a form of spiritual cleansing, a practice he claimed helped him wash away the masks that fame required him to wear. But for Hanks, the experience was anything but cleansing. He described feeling trapped, coerced by the weight of Diddy's charisma and the unspoken rules of their dynamic. Each bath ended the same way, with Diddy speaking cryptically about power, surveillance, and control. Hanks admitted that he stayed silent, convincing himself that these were eccentricities, not red flags. But in retrospect, he said, these moments felt like performances, staged for an audience he couldn't see.
That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Got punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid,
But the baths were just the beginning. Hanks detailed an unsettling pattern of behavior that included private gatherings at Diddy's properties where attendees were subjected to an invasive level of surveillance. Phones were confiscated upon entry, and hidden cameras were reportedly installed in vents, light fixtures, and mirrors. At one event in Malibu, Hanks recounted noticing a monitor displaying silent footage from past gatherings. Clips of celebrities lounging, drinking, and in some cases, undressing. When Hanks inquired about the footage, Diddy allegedly dismissed his concerns, calling it art and history. But to Hanks, it felt like something far more sinister. a calculated display of dominance, a way to remind everyone in the room that they were always being watched. The testimony only grew darker as Hanks revealed a specific incident from 2016, when he attended one of Diddy's so-called legacy retreats. These events, marketed as opportunities for reflection and personal growth, were anything but. Hanks described a weekend marked by eerie rituals and a pervasive sense of unease. Attendees included A-list actors, musicians, and even a tech billionaire, all of whom appeared nervous, as though they were participating in something they didn't fully understand. The weekend culminated in a bizarre group exercise where participants were asked to share their deepest fears while being filmed. Hanks said he refused to participate, but the exercise left an indelible impression.
No, I get it. So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head.
Hanks's testimony didn't just expose his own experiences. It also lent credence to the allegations leveled against Diddy in the ongoing trial. Prosecutors have painted a damning picture of the music mogul, accusing him of orchestrating a criminal enterprise that involved coercion, surveillance, and exploitation. Witnesses have described similar patterns of manipulation, from private gatherings where attendees were pressured into compromising situations, to elaborate freak-offs, as they were reportedly called, involving carefully choreographed encounters. The indictment against Diddy alleges that he used these events to exert control over his victims, leveraging his power and influence to ensure their silence.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at it.
But perhaps the most chilling aspect of Hanks' testimony was the way it echoed the broader themes of the trial. Themes of power, complicity, and the toxic culture that enables predators to thrive. Hanks admitted that his silence over the years wasn't just about fear, it was also about denial. He didn't want to believe that someone he considered a friend could be capable of such darkness. But as the allegations mounted and the evidence became impossible to ignore, Hanks said he felt compelled to act. The courtroom sat in stunned silence as Hanks finished his testimony, his words hanging in the air like a challenge. This wasn't just a story about Diddy. It was a story about an entire system, a system that protects the powerful, silences the vulnerable, and allows abuse to flourish in the shadows. Hanks' decision to speak out marked a turning point, not just in the trial, but in the public's understanding of the lengths to which some will go to maintain their power. And as the courtroom emptied that day, one thing was clear: the facade of innocence that had long shielded Hollywood's elite was beginning to crumble, and the world was finally starting to see what lay beneath.
Now you know to be hands-off with somebody. A number of producers come in to make the approach, and you threaten to punch them in the mouth, or threaten to knock their head off for talking to you like, or looking at you like you're a woman. You know, when you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're going to get a real reaction back. It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room. And a man don't take the same things that a guy will accept.
As the courtroom absorbed the weight of Tom Hanks' revelations, a new chapter of the trial began to unfold, one that shifted the spotlight onto Sean Diddy Combs himself. If Hanks' testimony had cracked the surface of what lay beneath Diddy's carefully curated public persona, what came next was a full-blown excavation. This was not just a story about strange rituals and concealed relationships. It was a story about an empire built on secrets, and the growing list of people who were finally ready to break their silence. For years, Sean Combs was untouchable, a titan of the entertainment industry who seemed to float above the controversies that occasionally swirled around him. From his early days as the mastermind behind Bad Boy Records to his transformation into a global brand, Diddy cultivated an image of invincibility. He was a kingmaker, a mogul with the power to make or break careers, and he wielded that power with precision. But now, that power is being called into question, and the evidence is damning.
I've lost businesses because I don't bend over in that way. I don't compromise. I don't play roles. I don't kiss a man. I don't do that because the man card means everything.
Let's start with the lawsuits, which paint a picture of a man who didn't just thrive in Hollywood's shadowy underbelly, he engineered it. Over a dozen civil suits have been filed against Diddy in recent years, with allegations ranging from coercion to physical intimidation. Some of these lawsuits date back decades, suggesting a pattern of behavior that many insiders claim was an open secret in the industry. According to court documents, several plaintiffs allege that Diddy used his influence to lure them into compromising situations, only to trap them in cycles of fear and silence. The details are chilling. Private gatherings where guests were stripped of their autonomy, hidden cameras capturing every moment, and the ever-present threat of retaliation for anyone who dared to speak out.
Stuff. Are you done with Hollywood because of
No,
this
I
specific
mean,
reason?
I'm still working. I still, I haven't made the money necessary to do all of the other stuff. So I still have to go and do the Chitlin circuit. I still have to do the job that I need to. But eventually, I've done what I set out to do, which was to redefine the universe. I've proven what I've set out to do, and that's why I have all the patents, whether they evaluate it or not.
One of the most explosive claims comes from a former artist signed to Bad Boy Records, who described their time under Diddy's mentorship as a nightmare masquerading as an opportunity. The artist, whose identity has been withheld for privacy, alleged that Diddy's infamous freak-offs were more than just wild parties. They were calculated displays of dominance, designed to strip participants of their agency and bind them to his control. According to court filings, these events were meticulously planned, with staff instructed to prepare everything from lighting to refreshments to ensure the atmosphere was just right. Guests were reportedly flown in from across the country, often under the guise of professional meetings, only to find themselves caught in what prosecutors describe as a web of manipulation.
So, Terrence Howard appeared on the PBD podcast with Patrick Bet-David, and the episode, this premiered on April 4th. Definitely making the rounds because in this episode, Terrence Howard describes an interaction with Diddy where he says that he believes that Diddy was trying to have him. Let's take a listen.
It doesn't end there. Insiders have come forward with accounts that echo these claims, further solidifying the case against Diddy. One former employee who worked security at his Los Angeles estate described a culture of secrecy that bordered on paranoia. Everything was about control, the source revealed. Phones were locked away, cameras were everywhere, and no one was allowed to ask questions. It was like being in a fortress, but not for protection, for surveillance. The source also alleged that Diddy kept detailed records of his interactions with guests, including video footage that was stored in a private archive. This archive, prosecutors believe, could be a key piece of evidence in the ongoing trial. But perhaps the most shocking revelations come from the victims who have chosen to speak publicly despite the immense pressure to stay silent. Cassie, the singer and former partner of Diddy, has become a central figure in this case, her voice lending weight to the growing chorus of accusations. In her lawsuit, Cassie described a relationship marked by control and coercion, with Diddy allegedly using his wealth and influence to isolate her from friends and family. She also detailed instances of physical aggression and psychological manipulation, claiming that Diddy's obsession with control extended to every aspect of her life.
Are you surprised by the evidence that's already coming out in the criminal trial?
No, I'm not surprised. I experienced some of those things. Witness violence.
Cassie's lawsuit was settled in less than 24 hours, a move that some legal experts have described as strategic. While the terms of the settlement remain confidential, the speed at which it was resolved has raised questions about what Diddy might be trying to keep hidden. And yet, the lawsuits keep coming. In one particularly harrowing account, a former assistant described being pressured into situations that blurred the line between professional and personal, with Diddy allegedly using his position to exploit their vulnerability. Another lawsuit, filed by a man who auditioned for Diddy's reality show Making the Band, alleges that he was subjected to inappropriate advances during private meetings. These stories, though varied in detail, share a common thread: the use of power as a weapon, and the careful construction of a public image designed to deflect scrutiny.
How many people came through his orbit? How many people could this have happened to? And how did he get away with it for so long?
But the accusations against Diddy go far beyond isolated incidents. In a 2024 lawsuit filed by a group of former employees, startling allegations emerged about the working conditions within Diddy's inner circle. The plaintiffs described an environment where boundaries simply did not exist, where professional roles were routinely blurred, and where fear of reprisal kept everyone in line. One former personal assistant alleged that Diddy held impromptu meetings late at night, often in private hotel rooms, and expected staff to comply with requests that had nothing to do with their job descriptions. These tasks allegedly escalated into deeply uncomfortable territory, with the assistant claiming they were coerced into attending after-hours gatherings that were more akin to private parties than professional obligations.
Referred to me as Wild King Nights. And what a Wild King Night was when him and a guest would go to a hotel room or be at his home, his bedroom, and they would have intimate gatherings. I would have to go and prep that hotel room, which consisted of baby oil Astroglide.
In another lawsuit, a former backup dancer recounted a harrowing experience on the set of one of Diddy's music videos, where they claimed the atmosphere was controlled by intimidation. According to court documents, the dancer alleged that Diddy would berate staff in front of others, creating a culture of public humiliation to establish dominance. The plaintiff also described being pressured into attending a private after-party following the shoot, where the lines between employer and employee became dangerously blurred. There was no saying no, the dancer reportedly stated in their deposition. If you said no, you risked losing everything, your job, your reputation, your connections. He made sure you knew that. Adding to the growing mountain of claims is a particularly detailed lawsuit filed in October 2024, in which a man who worked closely with Diddy's event planning team alleged that the mogul's infamous freak-offs weren't just a secret indulgence, they were a calculated tool of control. The lawsuit claims that attendees were often unaware of the full extent of what they were being brought into, with some flown in under the impression that they were attending professional networking events. Once there, they were allegedly plied with substances and encouraged or outright pressured to participate in activities designed to compromise them. The plaintiff further alleged that Diddy used recordings from these events as leverage, ensuring that anyone who even considered speaking out would think twice before doing so.
I thought he was this clean businessman who rise to the top because he was such a powerful and smart, educated man. I had no idea that he had this other side to him. And when I started to get exposed to his lifestyle, I started to really realize, this guy has an addiction. It's not just, once every few weeks, it's every day, every hour.
As the trial unfolds, the broader implications of these allegations are becoming impossible to ignore. This isn't just about one man's actions. It's about an entire culture that allows such behavior to go unchecked. For years, Hollywood has operated on a system of unspoken rules, where power and privilege shield those at the top from accountability. Diddy's case is exposing the cracks in that system, forcing the industry to confront uncomfortable truths about its own complicity. And let's not forget the conspiracy theories that have begun to circulate, adding another layer of intrigue to an already complex case. Some believe that Diddy's downfall is part of a larger reckoning within the entertainment world, a moment of collective accountability that has been building for years. Others suggest that the timing of these revelations is no coincidence, pointing to whispers of rivalries and vendettas that may have fueled the lawsuits. While these theories remain unproven, they reflect a growing sense of unease about the power dynamics that have shaped Hollywood for decades.
It was like, wow, for Diddy? What? That was a person that I looked up to. He was a mogul. And I listened to all the artists that he made superstars. And so to have a chance to be able to be signed to him, it was amazing. It was like, oh my God, I'm here. I finally did it.
What's clear is that this trial is more than just a legal battle. It's a turning point. The testimonies, the evidence, the sheer weight of the allegations, all of it points to a cultural shift, a moment where the old rules no longer apply. For Diddy, the stakes couldn't be higher. If convicted, he faces not only the loss of his freedom, but also the collapse of an empire he spent decades building. For the industry, the stakes are even greater. This is a moment of reckoning, a chance to finally break the cycle of silence and complicity that has allowed figures like Diddy to operate with impunity.
They've been afraid of coming forward. They've been afraid of what he could potentially do to them within the industry, what he could do to them professionally, maybe even personally. And so yes, it's been a dark secret they've held on to for a very, very long time.
As we watch this story unfold, one question lingers. How deep does this go? The revelations so far have been shocking, but they may only scratch the surface of a much larger, more insidious network of power and control. What other secrets are waiting to be uncovered? And who else might be implicated as the trial continues? One thing is certain, this is a story that's far from over, and as more voices come forward, the world will be watching, waiting, and demanding answers. Let us know your thoughts. What do you believe lies beneath the surface of this unfolding scandal? The truth, it seems, is only just beginning to emerge.